So, I don't think I would be a conspiracy theorist to say that everything that you're looking at right now is recording you in some way. Your phone, your computer, even if you have something like an Alexa or a smart TV, they're all recording some data. But what if I told you that this data was going to be used to resurrect you after humankind has become extinct? Well, then you would probably say, I think you've been playing too much Crymachina, and that would be the case. Yes, I'm talking about a video game that was published by NIS America, which, by the way, I gotta thank them for a review code for this game. And okay, so maybe that's not the data system that they're talking about, but I'd like to think that that is how our data is recorded and we will be resurrected in thousands of years. They have probably a more sophisticated system, but that's essentially the world we're walking into in Crymachina. And just real quick, guys, if I could get you to like, subscribe, share, do all of that stuff, that helps the channel grow. That really means a lot to me, and I truly appreciate it. Anyway, in Crymachina, we play as Leben, a young woman who is suddenly woken. The last thing that she can remember is that she was in a hospital bed, perhaps breathing her last breath. And now she's waking up in this almost sci-fi futuristic world to be told that humans have died out thousands of years ago. And these advanced AI robots they were all part of this fail-safe program that was developed to bring humanity back and resurrect them from extinction. Although the problem is these advanced machines, most of them have gone rogue and have stopped working the way they were supposed to. There's a small collection of these machines known as Dia Ex Machina that were supposed to work in unison to collect data and to essentially bring humanity back. Although after thousands of years, only one of these remains to work properly, and that one is named Enoa. She is an angel-like machine that has brought you back to life and dubs you the chosen one. She tells you that you and two other young women are going to be the ones who can fix all of these problems with these machines and help Enoa bring humanity back from extinction. Now, after a relatively short tutorial on how to hack and slash your way through enemies and a little bit of combat, you're introduced to the other two women, who are called Makoto and Amy. Now, for the most part, you get to know these characters through what they call tea parties. It's essentially just cutscenes that has them talking about personal information or their past or things like that to really get to know them. And it is kind of important to get to know them because for the most part, you'll be controlling all three women at different times. And boy, do you really get to learn about them. There is a lot of dialogue in this game. Some of it is kind of funny and refreshing, like they will reference old movies like Mad Max or Babe, Pig in the City. Things like that, which are pretty interesting and really kind of keep you engaged. But then there's also these very long cutscenes where the three women and Enoa are all discussing their feelings for each other, and essentially that they're all in love with each other in some form. Amy and Mikado and Leben has a very deep attachment to Enoa. But the thing is, I think it's an interesting concept as they know they're going to be the last humans or the last beings alive for quite a long time. In one of their chats, Enoa explains that it's sort of a roll of the dice if they're able to bring back the data of a human correctly, and that it's taken her thousands of years just to get you three. So the idea that, yeah, it could be another 1,000 years before another human shows up makes sense that they would want some sort of attachment or affection from other people. But for me, some of the style in which they talk about this is immature and kind of ridiculous considering the situation, and the fact that Levin jumps in on this immediately and is like, oh, I'm attracted to this machine that brought me back to life. Yes, and Noah looks like a woman like the rest of them, but still, she knows she's just a machine. And the fact that, I don't know, she's not more concerned about like what happened and how it happened, it just to me comes off a little pedantic. That's all I'm gonna say. I don't think it's that bad. I'm not bothered completely by these anime tropes because, again, when you think about it from a psychological standpoint, some of that does make sense. It's just it plays out in a much more, I don't know, I would say like constricted manner than what would normally happen. But that's fine. And the reason why I break some of this down is because that is the game. Most of this is what you experience in this game. It's a long visual novel-like game with boss rush combat thrown in there. And most of it is a hack and slash where you will go into these like very linear levels. You will fight about 3 to maybe 5 enemies, and then you'll fight a boss. Now, for the most part, I actually like hack and slash games, but this one is so linear with so few enemies that the combat actually is rather difficult. And don't get me wrong, I think there's a place and time for a hack and slash game to have a lot of difficulty, but it's the way that this one implements it. You see, as far as combat, the feeling, the rhythm, it's more like Dynasty Warriors and less like Dark Souls, but with the levels being so limited and there being so few enemies, they really ramp up the difficulty in combat, which is where it would actually be easier for it to be more like Dark Souls as far as defense and your ability to dodge. All of these things are very important in the game, but they just feel off. I don't know why. I couldn't get the timing right. It just didn't even feel like I was hitting the right buttons all the time. Sometimes it would work, other times it wouldn't. And as the game grew in difficulty, the combat also felt more foreign, and I was having trouble finding my timing and my rhythm in defending or parrying, and there was no dodging, which I really miss. I like the dodge roll. If I'm going to be in a very difficult combat situation with a big giant boss, I want to be able to dodge. That's all I'm saying. Like, yeah, I want to be able to roll out of the way. It helps me. But that's not the only problem that I had with it. It's just the fact that there was many times where you're expected to just play defense and counter, which is fine. And I think they definitely needed to do that, because if it was just simple hack and slash, the bosses and the enemies would all be way too easy, and this game would just be like a walkthrough. But I just felt like the timing didn't feel right. The combat itself just never felt like I knew what I was doing. It was almost like I was guessing at times. There are prompts to let you know when the enemy is going to do an attack that you can parry and then counter, but it just never really felt right. Sometimes it would happen quick, other times it would take a few seconds. Either way, it was never comfortable. I can say that, and I would have preferred had the combat been more like Dark Souls, because at least that combat is more understandable. This was trying to be two different games, and I did not love the combat at all, and it is brutally hard. I didn't expect that in the slightest. As well as, there's so much talking, so much dialogue, there's so much that goes in on the story that I wish they would have done a little bit more as far as character growth, your equipment, things like that really become important. In fact, there's something called Eve tuning or EVE tuning, where you can take some of the spoils of your battles and then turn them into XP for your characters so they can grow quicker. And all this can be done from like the central hub at your headquarters, and it doesn't tell you anything about this though. And so when I first started playing the game, I was under leveled for like 10 levels below, and I couldn't figure out how I could grind my character to at least be on par, let alone exceed that. And yeah, it was right there. They just didn't tell me. They had all this other dialogue, all this other information, but not that, which was pretty much quintessential for me continuing to play the game. Small things like that, which turn into big things, or just some of my issues with the game. Now, I think if you're really interested in visual novels and really great writing, you're gonna love that aspect of the game. But just be prepared for some incredibly brutal combat that I found very difficult to like. I couldn't compare it to anything that I'd played before, and just wished it was something different. Ultimately, I have to say that looking at everything that this game has to offer, it still has quality in things like graphics, sound, performance. All of those come through. The story, like I said, is done really well. The writing is excellent. Combat really just holds everything back for me. And ultimately, I would give this game a 6 out of 10. That's just my thoughts on Crymachina. Let me know what your thoughts are. Are you excited for this one? Is this one that you've been watching, or have you not heard about this game at all? Now you're a little bit interested, or are you gonna pass? I don't know. Anything and everything down in the comment section is really appreciated. I love each and every one of you. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.